Lesson 12.2 and 12.3. So here we're going to combine two different sections just because they're really short ones. I figured these could be combined into a single lesson. We're going to learn a little bit more on angles, and we're going to start delving into shapes, specifically triangles. So your goal is to understand how to classify various types of angles and triangles. All right, so we've already talked a bit about angles in the last lesson, but we're going to add just a little bit more onto it, which is the idea of complementary angles. And sorry about the blurriness, just the cut and paste. The source was a little low resolution. So complementary angles are when two angles add up to 90 degrees. And so here's some examples down below. I've got this example where I've got a 30-degree angle and 60-degree angle. Notice how they're not touching, they're separate angles. But because they add up to 90, that makes them complementary. Or you can have a situation like this, where you can have two adjacent angles, and because the two of them together have a right angle label here, that makes them complementary as well. And so one thing to think about is we are going to talk about something similar to this called supplementary angles, and the two are easily mixed up. So right now I would try to come up with a way to remember that complementary is 90. I've had some people say that, starting off writing the C for complementary is the same way they start off writing a 9. But whatever works for you in terms of remembering that complementary goes with 90 degrees, commit that to memory so you don't get the two mixed up. All right, so here's where we might use that kind of information. Now let's see if I can draw this on this equipment. The measures of two complementary angles are x degrees and 2x minus 3 degrees. Solve for x. So in other words, they're telling us that these two angles add up to 90 degrees. So if I were to draw this picture, it would look something like this. And again, this is going to be a horrible picture. I'm using a tablet, and it's a little hard to write. So there's our 90 degrees. So one of the angles is labeled x degrees. The other is 2x minus 3 degrees. But the important thing is that we know that these are complementary angles that add up to 90 degrees. So the work that we would show would be the first angle, x, plus 2x minus 3, the other angle, and we know that they're complementary, which means they add up to 90 degrees. So here we can just pull out our knowledge from chapter 1 and simplify and solve. So first I've got some like terms. We'll make that x plus 2x, which is 3x. And now we can start solving things. First thing I would do here is get rid of the minus 3 by adding 3. And we get this. And then divide both sides by 3. So x is 31 degrees. Now, if I were to plug this back in, that means this one's a 31 degree. Scratch that. That means this one is a 31 degree angle. And then this would be, let's see, 2 times 31 is 62. 62 minus 3, this would be a 59 degree angle. 31 plus 59 is 90 degrees. Okay, so like I said, there's another thing called supplementary, which is very similar. And the only difference is with supplementary, two angles are supplementary angles when the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. In other words, they form a straight angle. So like here, one angle is 135, one's 45, that adds up to 180. Or I can just visually see that the two angles are next to each other, side by side, on a straight angle, which makes them supplementary, because we know straight angle is 180 degrees. Now, just like complementary, have a way to remember this so you don't get the two mixed up. I've had people say that the beginning of the S, writing an S, is like starting the 8 in 180. But whatever works for you to help you remember and keep complementary and supplementary separate. All right, so let's try a problem like that with supplementary. The measures of two supplementary angles are n and 5n. Solve for n. In other words, once again, this is their way of saying that n and 5n, when put together, add up to 180 degrees. So if you want to visualize that, and I'm going to just put it on this picture, let's call this one n, and then this one is 5n. That's what our visual would look like. Okay, so here, simplify and solve. 6n equals 180 divide by 6, and equals 30 degrees. So that makes this angle 30 degrees, makes the other one 5 times 30, which is 150, and they add up to 180. All right, so that's our piece on angles, complementary and supplementary angles. Now let's take a look at triangles.